gone are the days where we were trying to build something based out of just Copilot data. And right now at Opsera, we've gone another step further to create a powerful tool that's designed to give you full visibility into how your team leverages GitHub Copilot. It's no longer about tracking just the usage metrics. It's also about unlocking actionable insights to drive the adoption of productivity, and also to ensure that your code quality and security are maintained at the par, and to ensure that there are no defect leaks and quality security vulnerability leaks happening as well.
So yeah, with Copilot dashboard that you see here, okay, so there are multiple aspects that we want to show here. One is with respect to your adoption, your everyday developer usage, and then your impact. We also can deep dive into productivity. So this gives you a quick glimpse of what is the overall Copilot allocated licenses for your organization, and how many licenses are actually used, in a given period of time. So see, all of these KPIs, you can, have a look at it at a weekly and a daily view. So here over the, trend, you'll be able to see the allocated licenses and license usage across different weeks, across different days. One thing I wanted to highlight here is currently, this data is coming, from, it's provided by GitHub at real time. So this comes from their billing information. And anytime you pull the data, you'll be able to see only, the latest or the data as of today. But this is where Opsera steps in, right? We start showing you the trend, because this gives you, you get you get a license usage today, but tomorrow you get the same license usage for, the next day. But are you able to actually understand, the zombie licenses? You have paid for 23 licenses in this case, right? But only 16 are using. This is a smaller number, but look at organizations. They've allocated 30,000 licenses, but probably only 15,000 is used. Why would I even pay for the next 15,000 licenses over a period of time, right? Probably you can leave it for 3 months. And, it's high time that we have to really look at, why am I paying, additional licenses, amount for the additional licenses. And not just that, right? You can also try to delve in detail with your developers to understand, why are these licenses not used? Probably they just installed it and they're not using it. Maybe it's not, really helping them as part of their coding language. So those are aspects that you can identify, and not just with adoption. That is where I'm going to show you, a few other KPIs where you can actually try to drill down into that specific pain point and see, what's the improvement that you can bring into your developers. And with the licenses, you can also look at your overall developer activity. Okay, so this kind of, gives you a glimpse of how many developers are actually active, right, across a period of time. We also give you a distinction of the IDE users and your chat users. So you can see, the difference, because a lot of the organizations have been, coming back asking for, what if, I'm using the chat for utilizing the test cases? What if I'm using it for documentation purposes? How am I even going to understand, get that productivity? And that's where, you can actually see, okay, if the chat users are, kind of consistent, are they increasing? Are they decreasing? So here you'll be able to see, from the overall, active users. Obviously, ID users are more, yes, because predominantly 80% they use it for the coding activity. But this gives you an understanding if chat is also used predominantly for your organizations. And here, this is where we want to highlight the heat map view. So, let's say you have a 2-week sprint, right? Probably your developers might not be, actively engaged with Copilot, across the 2 weeks, right? So coming back to the line chat, you might see, there is a, dip, and, there is an increase in the number of users. And this gives you a picture of why is that happening. Maybe, okay, they're actively, they're very busy with Copilot during, the middle part of the sprint, which is like, after they're done with the investigation, after they know everything about the user story. And that's when they want to actually, okay, I need this to happen, right? They start asking questions to Copilot. So that's the pattern that you can actually identify with respect, with the help of this heat map. You can see, similar patterns that is falling across, each of the sprints. So this gives you a quick picture to even, take it back to your leadership, tell them, okay, it is actively used, and this is exactly where they are, grabbing the all the support from Copilot. So this gives you a detailed glimpse, and you can also correlate this with the impact chart. So the impact chart that you see here, we offer 3 different flavors. One is, you get a trend of your actual suggestions provided by Copilot with respect to the acceptances, right? So here the suggestion and acceptance here, it means a block of code, right? You ask for a prompt, and then Copilot provides you a good chunk of code, and that's the overall suggestion of the acceptance that you see here. And probably, the chunk of code has 20 lines of code, but your developer is just picking 15. That is where you'll see the lines of code, suggested to accepted. Out of the 20 lines, probably just 15 has been accepted. Yes, you can see that trend over here, right? And this gives you the overall, commit lines, that is the overall lines of code that has gone into your repositories, and that is in comparison to your Copilot lines of code. How many lines of code that is actually, accepted from Copilot. So we give you the 3 different flavors. What we also, add additionally is, probably I want to understand more on where, there is more impact, which editor is it actually impacting. So you can filter out all of this data, at an editor level. You can see different editors, and at a language level as well, right? You probably want to specifically understand, for React or, for JavaScript, what is the, actual lines of code that is gotten. Yes, you can select the language and you'll be able to see the data, filtered. And we also show you the models. So, I want to touch upon a little bit about the Copilot models. I know Copilot started with, the OpenAI, which was the default model. But as and when the adoption grew across multiple organizations, across different markets, of course, you start using Copilot for your legacy projects, for projects that has been long running. Yes, that is where, there was a lot of feedback. There was a lot of input from, multiple, market giants, where they said, okay, probably this is not the model that is helping us, with the right data for, these languages. And then Copilot introduced a lot of fine-tuned models, right? So which is very, very, you can pick those fine-tuned models and you can use it across languages like C, C++, and, and that is when, we also brought in this model filter where you can actually filter out and see which model is providing you, the maximum impact, right? Where maximum suggestions and of course, maximum acceptances have gone in. Again, the lines of code that is gone in, more as well. So you can drill down to that level. I will also show a different view of, how you can look at the model of specific data. But with respect to impact, yes, you can filter out your impact with editors, languages, and models. And moving on, so you saw the overall, lines of code that is suggested, overall suggestions and acceptances. But what is the rate, right? So generally, every market, we tend to have a specific goal or a benchmark that, you want to, achieve, or you want your teams to, traverse through. So that's where the acceptance rate and the suggestion retention rate comes into picture. So here you can see that, the 35% goal and the 25% goal, that is where very specifically, you'll be able to, see, what is the acceptance rate. So 35%, the goal is something that we've derived out of multiple customer conversations and, market standards. That's very specifically for acceptance rate. And the acceptance rate that you see here is a rate, between your overall acceptances and your suggestions. And the suggestion retention rate, we have a goal of 25%. This is again comparing your lines of code that has been suggested and the lines of code that is accepted. So these two benchmark are pretty much, that has been derived out of various conversations. And this seems to be, also resonating with a lot of our customers. So that's something that I want to highlight here. And with this, before I get into the reliability part, I would want to show you, the developer usage. So all the data that you saw on the impact, we also show you a different view here. You see your Copilot, where Copilot is used more with respect to a programming language editor, and also, the models that is used in code completion and also chat models. So here you can see, all the languages where, Copilot is used, right? And so if you hover, you'll be able to see what is a line suggested and what is a line accepted. So that's the percentage that you see on the right side. And you get the same information with respect to the editors. And this is where I was mentioning about the code completion model. So all the different models, if your organization is using, everything will be listed here, and you'll be able to see which is more productive with respect to, helping your developers. Similarly, the chat models as well. So the OpenAI chat model, is a default model that we want to show you. But you can also see what is the overall copy events and the insertion events that is gone and right with respect to the model. So this is another view, again, a more detailed view of what you saw on, from the impact chart. So with that, I will also move on to the productivity. Okay, so you've been using Copilot for 3 months, 4 months, but the next question that keeps coming up across your organization is, what is the productivity? Is it really, really helping my developers, right? Is it really improving the developer productivity? Yes, we have an answer for that. And this is where our developer productivity report comes into picture. So you can track your Copilot productivity gains across, months, where you can actually look at a more granular level of data with respect to your languages. So, the languages that you see here are listed basically based on your, the organization. For each of the organization, whatever the languages that is being used across the repositories, all of them would be listed here. And here we give you a quick view of, the overall developer count and developers with Copilot licenses at each language. And then, we give you the overall Copilot suggested and accepted lines of code. And of course, the suggestion rate and acceptance rate. And then we come up with the Copilot productivity. So the Copilot productivity that you see here, it's basically, you compares your, the lines that is written by your developers in comparison to the lines that is actually, written or provided by your AI code assistants, your GitHub Copilot in this case. So we actually look at your overall lines written, and we, compare to your Copilot accepted lines, and that's when the Copilot productivity comes. So here I want to share, a very specific use case, by one of our marquee customer, where, there was they've been using it, for a few months, and consistently they saw that, the productivity for a particular language was kind of very low. And it was low, and they thought, okay, probably it's going to improve over time. And after a couple of months, looks like they reached out to their developer community, and they understood that, okay, probably they're not getting the right prompts that they need. And that productivity percentage is something that, they started tracking in the developer productivity gains of Opsera's dashboard. And they reached out back to, GitHub to understand why is, Copilot probably not giving us, the right information with respect to this language. And yes, there were fine-tuned models that got launched post. And, folks, you won't believe, from a very, very meager percentage of 0.15 to, 1%, they drastically jumped to 20% in the next, in a span of the next 2 months. And that is, again, one of the legacy languages. And the moment it worked, for a particular organization, they've rolled out that fine-tuned model across their organizations, and they're able to, kind of increase the developer happiness, specifically who are working on that particular language. So that's something that I want to specifically highlight here. And the developer productivity, yes, here we look at, some baseline information, like probably 100 lines of code per developer per day. And you have like 20 working days in a month. So we just compare, and we want to, we provide you the developer productivity, right? So this is how the developer productivity gets calculated. So we look at your overall Copilot accepted lines, and then, we compare it with a baseline. Again, this line of code 100, just like our other goals, it's predominantly like a benchmark, that we've derived. But it can vary according to your, your organizational needs. Probably want to increase or decrease it. Yes, you can do that as well. And and based on this, your elite, high, medium, low, and all of this elite, high, medium, low, how you want to set the baseline benchmark, it is all configurable. You can actually configure it. Probably, you're at the very nascent stage. You want to keep it pretty low. Yes, you can do that. And if you want to increase it, yes, you can, kind of increase it as and when your Copilot adoption is kind of increasing, And I will also quickly, give you a glimpse of how that works. Yeah, here you can go and configure, and this gives you, it's easier for you to help your teams adopt Copilot and understand the impact, as they grow with, multiple, more licenses. So pretty much, we've covered, your productivity and all. So what's next again, right? So reliability. So you want to start measuring your security and your quality. You want to start correlating that, with your Copilot data. That's where, your integration into your GAS or your Jira, your SonarQube comes into picture. So here, what we do is, your security dashboard and your quality dashboard, you start looking at the number of vulnerabilities that is being, there is a dip in the number of vulnerabilities, that is being produced after the usage of Copilot. That's the correlation we want to show here. By, here we've connected with GitHub Advanced Security Dashboard. But we can connect to, pretty much any other security tool to compare and show this data. Of course, SonarQube as well. And here, with respect to quality, we connect to Jira. Again, look at your SonarQube bugs to see how is your quality posture doing, right? You can, comparing to the usage of Copilot, is as your quality improved, right, over the time, is Copilot actually helping in giving you more bug-free, code, and your features are like very, very nice and smooth. So that's the kind of analysis and correlation that we want to show here. So what you see here is, very, very specific in comparison with Copilot, the security and quality. Of course, just like, Opsera's other dashboards, we do have a very, very detailed security, application security posture and application quality posture dashboard. If you guys want, just drop a comment. Probably we can, connect with you individually to go over some of them as well. So these are, the key KPIs that we wanted to highlight. And on top of all of this, right, at the end, is it really helping me? Again, just like your security and your quality metrics, is Copilot helping my developers, in the time that is taken to get the PR out, right? Or is it really helping them in the cycle time, making it faster, helping in the lead time for changes? So this is the analysis that, Opsera, it's a very niche feature with respect to Opsera's Copilot dashboard. We look at, Copilot versus non-Copilot information here. So you can see that the time to PR and the cycle time, the lead time for changes, you can see that it's 15% faster than the previous 90 days. So since we've selected as 90 days, we compare to the, the previous period. You can see the cycle time is actually faster, compared to the previous period. And lead time for changes, it's gotten slower. But yeah, this is where, you will start analyzing why this is happening. And that is where a Hummingbird AI is going to come into picture. I'm going to cover that, in the next couple of minutes. So here we compare the Copilot versus non-Copilot users data with respect to your time to PR, cycle time, and LGFC. And, you will be able to see the difference over here, if the time to PR is actually, reduced. And this is also where you'll be able to compare your teams, right? Just like what we saw in the leadership dashboard, at a more granular level, you'll be able to see, okay, this team, is using Copilot. Probably this team is not using Copilot. You can have multiple dashboards created, start looking at it. Again, it's not purely for comparison purpose. Probably you can try to understand if, that's really adding value to your developer productivity and it is helping them, in their developer experience journey. So that's the analysis that you'll be able to see with this. We also have the activity where it gives you a glimpse of, how many PRs got opened, how many PRs got merged, and the overall total commits by using Copilot, and by not using Copilot. So these are some of the key data that we want to highlight. And all of this data, it's going to, form as the base for the Hummingbird AI analysis. You can just connect to your GitHub Copilot, and you'll be able to see all of this data flowing in. At the moment you connect, you'll be able to see the last 28 days of impact data. And as and when, like probably in a couple of days, you'll be able to see all of the PR, your commit data as well. And with all of this data, okay, what am I getting? What is my, key takeaway? So here you can see, what is the overall acceptance rates, Copilot suggested lines, and what is the actionable insight that you can take. Okay, this is with respect to your overall utilization and impact. And you can also see the efficiency and the productivity metrics. Okay, so what is the the current period, previous period, and what is the impact that it's showing? This is where you'll start looking at your your ROI, your savings, your what is the time savings that the team is bringing and how much you're actually taking to the bank.